right, good morning, everybody. It's Friday, March 11th. Welcome to Simply Cyber's Cybersecurity Threat Briefing. First things first, presented by Barricade Cyber Solutions, your partner for incident response, ransomware protection, and business recovery. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to be tearing up the top cybersecurity news stories of the day, giving you everything you need to know on how to proceed forward, what to do for your end users, and how to protect your organization. But for the next 3 minutes, we are going to be welcoming everybody into chat and kick off this Friday. So let's say, what's up, Brandon? What's up, Brian? Good to see you. Anna Lynn, hello. Stephen H. We got the Roots playing in the background. Love it. So what's up, Brian? Hey, what's up, David? Brian, good to see you. Kayla Rose, good to see you. I hope you guys were able to catch last night's Pink Draconian live stream. That guy is super impressive and really just doing amazing things in interesting ways. And there was that Integrity CTF and conference this weekend that he told us about, free for everybody. So if that's interesting to you, go check that out. If you jump to the end of the live stream last night on replay, you'll be able to see it. Excuse me. Good morning, Muhammad. Purple Otter, good to see you. Guys, I hope you can hear it. I've got some instrumentals playing in the background. This is the Roots. I love the Roots. I have seen the Roots in concert more than any other group, and they're just an absolute treasure. I love it. Good morning, Matt Lee. Good to see you, Fierce Beard. Toby, glad you enjoyed last night's live stream. I did too. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Low Country Love. Oh my God, guys! Full cup of coffee today, guys. Went with the big mug. This guy, it's hard to show on screen, but like this is a huge mug of coffee, and this is my second one. Special love to the 36 Electronic Warfare Squadron out of Florida, Air Force. Colonel McGuire invited me up there to give a talk to those fellas and ladies, and this was a part of the gift they gave me, so I sincerely appreciate that. Ryan, coffee's weak. Well, you might have to, double up on the coffee. Maybe drop an espresso shot, turbo it. Oh, you can't hear it? Well, that's going to be a problem. Hopefully, let me check my audio, guys. Let me check my audio. Oh, yeah. Guys, I'm glad we do this. How's that sound? Let me know if you can hear the audio now, guys, because you got to hear it if you're going to hear the podcast. Oh, it's so good. Let me know if you hear it. I'm a T gal. Actually, you know what, Kimberly? The company I just started working at, ThreatGen, they're big T people too, and they gave me a rundown on the T's that get you up, the T's that get you down, proverbially down, like chill you out. So I didn't realize anything. Okay, so we have no audio. All right. Well, let me continue checking this out. Audio output. Let's try this. And the audio input. I don't know. Can you guys hear this? Okay. Yeah, it's supposed to be background ambient sound. Guys, I'm now messing with my audio, so I need to confirm before we... BSEC, I don't trust you because you always say stuff that's not true. Guys, we can't dig into the podcast if I can't confirm the music. Yeah, I know, Keith. I appreciate that, but the problem is the podcast comes through the same way the music comes through. So that's going to be a thing. All right, guys. So we'll try to start. I've turned the audio input and output both to the same interface, so we'll find. Never had any issues from you today. All right. Well, let's dig in and we'll see what happens. And if it turns into a mess, then we'll take care of it, right? That's the nice thing about this community. We're very understanding and granting of grace. So let me see what's going on here. Hold on one second. I've got to do one thing. I'll be back in just 1 second. All right. So if you're new here, this is how we roll. we go to sisuseries.com and we pull down the podcasts for the day. David Spark and his group, they do excellent work. And we basically jump on their back and tear it up. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I do want to share one quick thing of interest. So yesterday we had the story of the UPSs, the Schneider Electric ones, and how they could be basically messed up, right? Like you could control them and bring them down and stuff. And I reported my analysis was like, yeah, that's kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, like how often are you using the UPS devices? When do you really need them? Low impact is what I had said. Well, friend, actually, Eric Taylor, sponsor of First Things First, his company, Barricade Cyber Solutions, messaged on Discord this video that you can't see. And basically, this is the attack in its full glory. Now, what I want to point out is, you see right here where it says firmware install? Okay, so when you're overwriting the firmware, this is a significant difference than just bringing it down. The firmware is like the operating system of the machine. So overwriting that is bad news. And then this video, which I'll link in chat, it does show you a bunch of different kind of attacks. But one interesting one is, hold on one second. I don't want to hear this audio. God dang. Hold on one second. I don't want to hear the audio. Crap. All right. Well, I can't change the audio, so just bear with me. Basically, you can overwrite the firmware, do all these things, but like right here, you could see the UPS device is actually smoking and cooking itself. So literally, the impact is actually quite higher than I had previously reported, because when you are cooking the UPS device, that thing is totally done. And you would need to buy a new one, which is supply chain nightmare right now. You'd have to pull that one out. You'd have to put a new one in and configure it and all that. This is a much more serious issue than I had previously reported. So I just wanted to give context to that, since I was like shooting from the hip yesterday. And that's just, I'm updating my stone cold lock of the week for worst vulnerability. Okay, guys, so let's get into today's cybersecurity headlines. All right.
CISO series. It's cybersecurity headlines.
It's Friday, March 11th, 2022. Russia creates its own TLS certificate authority to bypass sanctions. Russia has created its own trusted TLS certificate authority to solve website access problems that have been piling up after sanctions prevented certificate renewals. The sanctions imposed by Western companies and governments are preventing Russian sites from renewing existing TLS certificates, causing browsers to block access to sites whose certificates have expired. According to the Russian public services portal Gosuslugi, the Russian state will replace the foreign security certificate if it is revoked or expired, and the Ministry of Digital Development will provide a free domestic analog within 5 working days.
Okay, so this is, not surprising, but, this is a solution. So as, so certificate authorities, and I am not an expert on this. I do know a little bit. So people in chat, if you got something to correct or whatever, let's do that. But like when you have a certificate that you use for HTTPS, right? Like this bleeping computer website has an encrypted connection over TLS. That connection is initially made with a certificate, and then you establish that secure connection, and then you pass a symmetric key across for the actual data session. The certificate, how do you know that that certificate is legit? It's the right certificate. Well, a certificate authority is the one that kind of validates the integrity of that certificate. And if you've ever gotten one of those pop-ups that says like, hey, this certificate, something's wrong with it, and then like you always just click OK and go right through, the reason you're getting that pop-up is sometimes it's because the certificate is expired, but sometimes it's because the certificate authority behind the certificate, they don't line up, which means it's like a fake cert, right? Looking to map to that. So if the certificate authorities are no longer available because everybody's wholesale pulling out of Russia, you're going to get all these things. And now it seems like Russia's going to stand up their own certificate authority to address that. The only thing that is interesting to me about this story, and again, I'm not an expert on this particular thing, is, can Russia now act like a man in the middle and do TLS decryption, encryption in the middle of any traffic that's using those certificates for transmission, right? Because if that's the case, then we're talking potential for wholesale surveillance on, government and public sector communications, right? So a little bit of a concern. Obviously, if you use VPN, you can level up where that level of encryption happens and kind of bypass that. But this is what I'm thinking initially with this. But this is obviously a response to needing the infrastructure that was there provided by external parties internal to the country now.
Online sleuths are using facial recognition to ID Russian soldiers. In France, the CEO of a law enforcement and military training company called Tactical Systems took a screenshot of a Russian soldier's face taken from a video posted on Telegram.
There he is.
Within an hour, using facial recognition services available to anyone online, he identified the soldier by name and found his Instagram account. Experts suggest that these technologies do run the risk of misidentifying people, but recognize also that a range of facial recognition technologies are becoming a significant weapon for both sides.
Interesting. So this is pretty cool. And, they do have a confidence level here in the research, which is nice. It's awfully small, but it's 76% confident that this is the same person. All right, guys. So as we continue forward in our technical evolution and maturity, the ability for facial recognition, it's been around for a while, but it's getting way better as the corpus data set underneath continues to expand, as everybody is posting everything on social media. There's a company in China, I believe it's China, called like OpenAI, or someone in chat knows what I'm talking about. There's a company that it's very, very good at identifying people on in any picture using another picture of the person and finding all their stuff. And basically this person, this company has wholesale scraped the internet for all images. And it gets into a question of privacy versus not privacy. And if your Facebook account was ever public at any point, it'll scrape it. And if someone posted a picture of you on their account that's public, it's in their corpus. I'll try to find it, but it's insane how effective this guy's product is. And of course, he says oh, it's just a lookup tool. It's no big deal. But obviously, you can use it for the January 6th insurrection, right? You could literally use the technology to identify everybody in that photo, for example, if that's something you want to do. It looks like there's a Twitter thread here recounting the entire OSINT investigation for this particular person. I'll drop this in chat as well because it sounds interesting. How do I drop it in chat? I have no mod support this morning. Let me do this. There you go. It's in chat. And let's keep going. I know for those OSINT folks out there, Kimberly, Michelle, Base, there's a whole group in the Simply Cyber community running a CTF for the Trace Labs coming up. So this might be a tool set that they used and techniques that they use that you might be able to leverage yourself in that event.
Basic text color trick can fool phishing filters. Researchers at Avanan said Thursday they found evidence of a phishing campaign that uses a simple trick involving the text color in an email. The bogus emails include text that is covered in white, blinding it from the end user and fooling phishing filters, writes Avanan's Jeremy Fuchs. In this case, the attackers add nonsense strings of text that obfuscate what otherwise looks like typical phishing email text and probably would be exiled immediately to the trash by many email providers. The goal, as is common for this kind of campaign, is to get the recipient to log into a fake web page or call a phone number, a classic credential harvesting scheme, says Avanan.
Okay, guys, I'm telling you, if you've been a fan of the show for a while, you know I have hat tip. I need a sound effect for the hat tips. Hat tip to the bad guys. They are so creative and so ingenious. It took me a second to understand this attack. But essentially, guys, bad guys will send a phishing email. It's more, well, there's the whole sorts of different kind of lures they'll throw on it. One, like, hey, call this phone number, so then they can socially engineer you on the phone. Sometimes it's just an invoice and see if you pay it. There's some famous stories of like Facebook paying millions of dollars in invoices to, like, basically some criminal basically just sent an invoice into Facebook and they paid it. But email gateways are so good right now at identifying both, if the sender is sending lots of people the same email and it looks kind of fishy, and also the contents of that email. So this email has all the things that the fish would have, but then they've written in white font a whole bunch of garbage, which an end user who gets this in their inbox will not see that white font. So it'll still be the same fish that it's always been, but it circumvents the mail gateway, because when the mail gateway reads the email, it sees all the text, and that white font kind of muddles it up and makes it not look like that traditional fish. So, it's not super complicated, but it is effective apparently. It's easy enough though for people like Azure, Exchange Online Protection, Proofpoint, to start baking in mechanisms to account for this. But you know what? Hat tip to the bad guys. Nice move.
Ukrainian hacker linked to Revil ransomware attacks extradited to the United States. Yaroslav Vazinski, a Ukrainian national linked to the Russia-based Revil ransomware group, has been extradited to the US to face charges for his role in carrying out the file encryption malware attacks against several companies, including Kaseya, last July. The 22-year-old had been previously arrested in Poland in October 2021, prompting the US Justice Department to file charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and related activity in connection with computers, damage to protected computers, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Vazinski, who was transported to Dallas on March 3rd pursuant to an extradition treaty, had his charges formally read in the Northern District of Texas. If convicted on all counts, he faces a total prison term of 115 years.
Oh my God. Jesus. 115 years. That's brutal. But you know what? Don't be a massive ransomware criminal operator. Now, a couple of things with this story. One, I appreciate that they are holding someone accountable. This individual is definitely going to be a poster child for think twice before committing ransomware crime. Now, it's I have to think, like, Revil's been around for a few years, so I'm not sure if a 22-year-old is the head of the snake on this particular one, but someone's going to be held accountable. I do find it interesting just from I don't want to say PR perspective, but like, Ukraine is obviously, the world is, thoughts and prayers go out to Ukraine. And this individual is a Ukrainian national who's going to be held highly accountable for essentially all of the activity that Revil did and all the bad Revil did. So there is a little conflict there, not morally, but like just the way you kind of perceive it. But I'm glad they extradited him. We usually don't get to do that to the criminal threat operators. They typically work in almost immunity. So seeing something like this is good, and I guarantee you this is going to be highly publicized and very, very socialized as far as like this. Maybe not the case, but when this individual is likely found guilty, and they are reading out the charges, the punishment, that will be wildly socialized, because they're going to want that to get out there to as many threat actors as possible, to communicate, like, this is why you don't do it.
They remain the domain of humans. To learn more about the realities of automation, head to
also 115 years.
TORQ.io. Quackbot Botnet sprouts fangs and injects malware into email threads. The Quackbot Botnet, that's Quackbot, is getting more dangerous, sinking its teeth into email threads and injecting malicious modules to pump up the core botnet's powers. On Thursday, Sophos published a deep dive into the botnet, describing how researchers have recently seen it spreading through email thread hijacking, an attack in which malware operators mal-spam replies to ongoing email threads. In a recent campaign, Quackbot has also been devouring system information, Sophos said. Quote, it spreads through email thread hijacking and collects a wide range of profile information from newly infected machines, including all the configured user accounts and permissions, installed software, running services, and more, end quote. After which, the botnet downloads the malicious modules.
Okay. A couple things here. One, I'll admit, I don't know if you're in the same camp as me, but I have called this Quakebot since I saw it. So, I mean, that's how I always read it, was Quakebot, not Quackbot. So, I guess you learn something new every day. Okay. So I did not fully understand what was going on, but it sounds like they reply all to email threads with malicious content in the email. So instead of sending a unsolicited email, somehow they are receiving an email and then they reply, and then they've got some type of like URL to a watering hole page or some type of credential stealing page or something like that. The weird thing is, it looks like, okay, so there's a URL that would actually download a file. I guess the attack vector is that they're targeting people who market email, right? So you get an email from like MailChimp, or you get an email from Microsoft saying, check this out, or Spotify or Amazon trying to sell you something, and you reply to that and get into their environment that way. I guess I'm not really sure. That the key takeaway here is this thing is malware. It's kind of standard operating procedure here, right? They get something to download, and then it pulls down stage 2 payloads, which has, they said, Cobalt Strike in the story. So it pulls down some post-exploitation malware, and then the bad guys are in your box, and then they start, looking around, stealing stuff and doing damage. So it's interesting. Yeah, this is just a macro virus. This is just a procmon showing you kind of the file execution and writing to the disk. So, guys, I'm sure that there is Quackbot IOCs out there, TTPs on how it works and stuff like that. Just make sure your EDR, if you use EDR, is tuned to look for Quackbot and the evolution of Quackbot. Maybe ask your EDR vendor what we're doing. You could also, if you do it in a lab, don't do this. Don't do this unless you know what you're doing. But you could download a Quackbot sample from Malware Bazaar and then detonate it on one of your machines in a very, very controlled way, and see if your EDR recognizes it and stuff like that. Again, only do that if you know what you're doing. Anyways, so Quackbot, it's a thing.
Big Cloud suspends sales in Russia. Sort of. Expanding on a story we brought you yesterday, as tech companies like Adobe, Apple, and PayPal, as well as consumer giants like Exxon, Visa, McDonald's, and Coca-Cola have ceased doing business in Russia, so too have most cloud vendors, but not all. Yesterday, we reported that AWS, which has no data centers in Russia, implemented a policy change over the weekend, preventing customers in Russia and Belarus from signing up for new accounts. TechCrunch reports that Microsoft and IBM have taken action to suspend sales to Russia, while Google states it is, quote, not accepting new Google Cloud customers in Russia at this time, end quote. Cloudflare, which is not a pure cloud infrastructure vendor but helps provide secure internet access via hundreds of data centers around the world, says it feels it is important to keep the internet running in the country in spite of calls to shut down service there, stating, quote, Russia needs more internet access, not less, end quote.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? They're basically just pointing out that the biggest big tech companies in the world are suspending activities in Russia. And you have to remember, this isn't like flipping a switch and shutting the lights out, right? I mean, maybe you could do that, but it's like stopping a windmill, just full stop. Like, it'll damage itself. So, they are spinning down. They are not allowing new customers, and they're suspending at least sales, right? And I'm sure they're going to spin down some of the services and stuff like that. What is interesting, and when I was doing my research at the beginning of the week, because remember, Cloudflare, Ping Identity, and Carbon, not Carbon Black, Jesus, I guess we'll say Carbon Black. they were offering 4 months of free services to hospitals, water, and energy companies. And one of the things I did when I was researching it was noticing that Cloudflare was getting a lot of public blowback of their, there was a call for all the big tech companies to pull out of Russia. And anyone who didn't had to basically answer to the court of public opinion on why they were not willing to support that. And Cloudflare is one of those companies. And again, their overall position is that the citizens of Russia continue to need internet service in order to stay informed in these things. So they can't pull out. So it gets very, very complicated quickly. It's very easy to say, like, cut Russia off from the rest of the world, but the devil's in the details on that one.
New vulnerability affects thousands of self-managed GitLab instances. Researchers have disclosed details of a new security vulnerability in GitLab, an open-source DevOps software that could potentially allow a remote, unauthenticated attacker to recover user-related information. Tracked as CVE 2021-4191, the medium-severity flaw affects all versions of GitLab Community Edition and Enterprise Edition starting from 13.0 and all versions starting from 14.4 and prior to 14.8. Rapid7's Jake Baines said, quote, "The vulnerability is the result of a missing authentication check when executing certain GitLab GraphQL API queries." In a report published Thursday, he continued, quote, "A remote, unauthenticated attacker can use this vulnerability to collect registered GitLab usernames, names, and email addresses." End.
Okay, so a remote unauthenticated attacker, which basically means anyone in the world, could exploit this API vulnerability to collect GitLab usernames, names, and email addresses. So this is interesting because GitLab's huge, and we see Shodan here, Shodan.io. If you're not familiar with that internet tool, it's awesome. And it basically, goes over the entire internet time and time again and just curates everything that's out there and then makes it searchable. Getting GitLab usernames, names, and email addresses, that is not terrible, but it will provide, basically a list for a threat actor to then develop some type of phishing credentials to target individuals. Also, they can map it against data breaches that are out there, password data dumps, and then do attempt to log in with these different found passwords that match the email addresses for GitLab users. And sadly, they'll probably get into a couple of them. Again, this is interesting, but it says a CVS score of 9.6, which is super high. I'd have to look into that because, what's the real impact? You can get this username, names, and email addresses, but that's not like you pwn the entire GitLab account or anything like that. So I'd have to dig into it. Yeah, it's here, password guessing, password spraying, etc. So interesting. If you're using GitLab, be aware of it. Make sure you have multi-factor on. That's what I would do.
Google rolling out air raid alerts to Android users in Ukraine.
Oh.
The new feature was announced via an update to a March 1 blog post regarding the actions taken by Google following the Russian invasion. Kent Walker, Google's president of global affairs, stated the airstrike warning system rolling out to Ukrainians' Android phones, quote, "is supplemental to the country's existing air raid alert systems," end quote, and it uses air raid alert information provided by the Ukrainian government. It's Friday.
Okay, so it sounds like okay, guys. So Ukraine is currently being bombed by air attack. Okay, bombs are being dropped. We've heard about the humanitarian corridors being hit, hospitals, etc. So Google has done a public service here by issuing, if you've ever gotten the public broadcast thing on your phone, like the brrr, brrr, that's what it sounds like. Then that's exactly what it is. It sounds like they've done something similar where they alert you that when you hear that, you need to get your butt to cover ASAP. Way to go, Google. I'm curious. Personally, just from a technical perspective, I'm curious how Google knows that there is an impending airstrike, that an alert need to be issued. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how Google is aware to sound the siren. So I'm curious if they're working with Ukraine's government in some capacity there, but it is interesting nonetheless. So very cool. I appreciate that. Let's get our roots going because it is Friday, March 11th, and it's all about good times up in here. Why do I see a loading bar? Guys, loading bar. You're killing me, Smalls. There we go. All right, guys. So we got to the end of the week. Congratulations. We did it. We win. Okay. So, y'all, real quick, I want to share a couple things with you. I teased this yesterday on First Things First. I'm super pumped. We're having John Strand back on next week. He's doing another one of the Pay What You Can courses. This one's exclusively focused on SOC core skills. So if you want to be a SOC analyst, you're aspiring to be one, you want to pivot into being one, John is literally giving a 16-hour course for whatever price point is comfortable for you. And literally, Black Hills has their own MDR SOC service now. He's literally training you with all the skills you would need to work in his SOC. I'm not saying he's giving jobs to his SOC. What I'm saying is it's not a boot camp where like there's like hopes and dreams or what they're selling. He's literally giving you the core skills. And I personally took John's class for active defense and cyber deception a couple weeks ago or a month ago or two. And it was phenomenal. So we're going to bring John on. We're going to talk about the entire course. We're going to talk about why the skills are in demand. We're going to talk about, how it maps into what he's doing at his SOC, like what's the current state of workforce development. We're even got SOC stands for Security Operations Center. It's essentially the blue team defenders for any organization. So it's everybody who's looking for bad stuff to happen. And then when bad stuff happens, they see it and respond to it immediately. That's what a SOC analyst does. So we're going to be doing that. If you are, whoops, hold on. We don't need to hear you, Neil. If you guys are relaxing because you're listening to this smooth jazz I'm piping in here and you want to keep the train going, you can jump over to Neil Bridges' Cyber and Security stream. He actually just announced he switched jobs, so I'm sure he's talking about that quite a bit. There is not a threat hunting course that I'm aware of that John does for free. There is a threat hunting course that has a price point associated with it. Only the John Strand ones are pay what you can. But yeah, check it out, Richie Perry. Go over to Black Hills Information Security's website, look under training, and you'll see it. They have phenomenal training. It's like amazing. So we can go over to Neil's stream if you want to keep the train rolling on your Friday morning. If you do go over, please do me a favor and drop a hashtag Simply Cyber in chat on his stream. I just dropped it in our chat. Let him know what's up. Okay, here, like just like this. Where's my thing? There it is. Hashtag Simply Cyber. And you can raid his stream for us. I might even jump over there myself. Thank you, BSEC, for dropping the link in there. Oh my God, guys, we did it. I'm so happy. Oh, by the way, at the beginning of the chat, I saw I think Dave Fleming, I may get the name wrong, I'm sorry, but I saw him drop a super chat. Oh, I got a sound effect for that. Come on, sound effect, play that. Well, sound effect's not going to play, sorry, but I do appreciate the super chat. I did see it. I want to give recognition there. Thank you so much. And to all of the squad members, thank you for supporting the channel. I love doing this and being able to kind of upgrade the gear, get these lights, this microphone. It's genuinely appreciated. And to Barricade Cyber Solutions for sponsoring the morning streams, thank you for helping us deliver this content every single day, guys. I've got a big thing to tell you. Thank God my students told me this on Thursday. Next week is spring break. So it's 8 a.m. first things first all week next week. I would have driven to the Citadel and shown up and been like, where is everybody? But apparently it's spring break. When you get to be my age, every week's, the same. So 8 a.m. first things first all week next week. So you'll see if you go to simplycyber.io/FTF, you'll see all the links to the upcoming live streams. So you can catch it right there and make sure that you get it. But again, 8 a.m. all week next week. I feel you. I know the West Coast people have reached out to me and asked me to kind of come up with a better solution, but the way that I practice information security, the way I deliver cybersecurity for my organization, I have to start my day with my threat briefing. It's very disruptive if I try to do my threat briefing later in the day. So that's why I do it when I do it. So that's going to do it for First Things First this week, guys. It's Friday, March 11th. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you over in Neil's stream. Best wishes, everybody.